The alarm came at the worst possible time. It always did. Station was the largest communication hub in the outer sectors of the galaxy. Thousands of signals passed through it every hour. Trade agreements, diplomatic messages, personal calls between families across the stars. The station never slept. It could not afford to. Commander sat in the central operations room, her eyes scanning the dozens of screens in front of her. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had served in the Galactic Council's Emergency Response Division for 15 years. She had seen many things. She thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. "Commander," a young officer called out. His voice was shaking. "We have a distress signal, priority 1. Walked over to his station. The screen showed a weak, flickering signal. The transmission was broken into pieces, filled with static and noise, but the message was clear enough. "This is Colony Theta 9. We are under emergency. Our main dome has collapsed. Radiation storms. Seismic activity. We have over 3,000 souls. We need immediate help. Please, anyone, please help us." The message repeated, again and again. Each time it sounded more desperate. Felt her stomach turn cold. She knew about Theta 9. Everyone in the emergency division knew about it. The colony was located on one of the most dangerous planets in known space, a Class 7 death world, the kind of place that killed most species just by existing. "Show me the planet data," she ordered. The screen changed. Numbers and readings filled the display. Surface temperature, 47 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric composition, toxic to 93% of known species. Radiation levels, 340 rads per hour. Seismic activity, constant. It was a nightmare, a hellscape. No sane species would try to live there. But they were not like other species. They were miners and scholars. They went to dangerous places because those places held rare minerals and ancient secrets. They were curious. They were brave. And now they were dying. "Who do we have in the sector?" asked. The officer checked his screens. "They have a patrol ship, but they refuse to enter the planet's atmosphere. Too dangerous. They have a medical vessel, but their crew cannot survive those conditions. They did not even respond." Closed her eyes. This was always the problem. The galaxy was full of species, but most of them were fragile. They had evolved on gentle worlds with mild weather and calm skies. They could not handle extreme conditions. They could not survive where the universe turned hostile. There was only one species that could. "Contact Earth," said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Send the distress signal to the human expeditionary fleet." The officer looked at her with wide eyes. "Commander, the humans. Do you have a better option?" He did not. No one did. The message was sent. It flew across the stars at faster-than-light speed, carrying the desperate cry for help to a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. A planet that most species avoided. A planet that had earned a terrifying reputation. Earth, the death world. Waited, minutes passed, then an hour. She began to wonder if the humans would respond at all. They were strange creatures, unpredictable. Some said they were barely civilized. Others said they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. Then the screen lit up with an incoming transmission. A face appeared, a human male with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a military uniform with a simple name tag, Captain. "Station, this is Captain of the HSS Indomitable. We received your distress signal." His voice was steady, almost relaxed. "We are already on our way. Estimated arrival, 14 hours. Please have all available information ready for us when we arrive." Stared at the screen. "Captain, you understand the conditions on Theta 9. The radiation, the toxic atmosphere, the seismic activity." Nodded. "We read the data." "And you are still coming." For the first time the human smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it that made skin prickle, something old, something fierce. Commander, my people evolved on a planet that has been trying to kill us for 4 billion years. We have survived ice ages, super volcanoes, meteor strikes, and plagues that killed millions. We have predators that hunt us, whether that destroys our cities, and earthquakes that swallow our homes. We call our world Earth. Some call it a death world. He leaned closer to the screen. Thetanine sounds like a vacation spot. We will be there soon. The transmission ended. Stood in silence. Around her, the officers of station exchanged nervous glances. They had all heard stories about humans. Stories that seemed too wild to be true. Stories about beings who could run for hours without stopping, who could heal from wounds that would kill other species, who could survive in temperatures that would freeze or boil most creatures. Stories about a species that was not afraid to die. In the diplomatic wing of station, Ambassador received the news. He was like those trapped on Thetanine. His body was slender and delicate, covered in skin that glowed with soft blue light. His bones were hollow. His eyes were large and gentle. He looked like a creature made of glass and starlight. When he heard that humans were coming to rescue his people, he did not feel relief. He felt fear. "The humans," he whispered to his aide. "Are we certain this is wise?" His aide, a young named Bora, looked at him with confusion. "Ambassador, the humans are the only ones who can survive those conditions. They are our only hope." "I know," said. He walked to the window and stared out at the stars. "But have you ever seen a human in person?" "No, Ambassador." "I have, once, at a diplomatic gathering on the core world of shivered at the memory. They move wrong, Bora, too smooth, too quiet. And their eyes are the eyes of predators. They look at you like they are deciding whether to help you or eat you." Bora was silent for a moment. "But they are coming to help us." "Yes, and that terrifies me most of all," turned away from the window. "When a predator helps you, you must ask yourself, what does it want in return?" 14 hours. That was how long they had to wait. 14 hours for the humans to cross the void of space in their strange, angular ships. 14 hours for the survivors on Thetanine to hold on. 14 hours for to wonder if calling for human help was a blessing or a curse. On the surface of Thetanine, the survivors huddled in their damaged shelters. The radiation storms howled outside. The ground shook with endless tremors. Their dome had collapsed, exposing them to the poisonous air. Many were already sick. Some had died. A young girl named held her mother's hand. Her mother was unconscious, burned by radiation. Did not know if help was coming. She did not know if anyone had heard their cry. But somewhere in the darkness of space, a ship was racing toward her. A ship filled with creatures from a death world. Creatures who had survived everything the universe had thrown at them. The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. The HSS Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace like a stone falling through water. One moment, there was nothing but empty void. The next, a massive ship appeared, its dark hull reflecting the distant light of alien stars. Captain stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that showed little emotion. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He had fought in border conflicts, rescued survivors from natural disasters, and led his crew through situations that would have broken lesser men. He was not easily impressed. But even he felt something when he saw Thetanine. The planet filled it was a world of browns and oranges and sickly greens. Massive storms swirled across its surface. Lightning flashed in endless chains. From orbit, they could see the radiation patterns sweeping across the land like waves of invisible fire. "Sensors are reading the colony location," Lieutenant reported. She was second in command, a woman with quick hands and quicker mind. Her dark hair was cut short and her eyes never stopped moving across the data screens. "Main dome has suffered major structural failure. Approximately 60% collapsed. Secondary structures show damage. Life signs are scattered." How many? Asked. Hard to say. The radiation is interfering with our sensors. Maybe 2,000, maybe less. 2,000. The colony had held over 3,000 souls. That meant 1,000 were already dead or dying. His jaw tightened. Get the teams ready. I want boots on the ground in 1 hour. The ship became a hive of activity. In the equipment bay, soldiers checked their gear with practiced efficiency. They wore heavy environmental suits designed to protect them from radiation, toxic air, and extreme temperatures. The suits were bulky and uncomfortable, but they would keep their wearers alive. Sergeant led the equipment check for Alpha Team. He was a big man with a shaved head and hands that looked like they could crush rocks. Despite his fierce appearance, his voice was gentle as he spoke to his soldiers. Remember, we are not here to fight. We are here to rescue. They are fragile. Their bones are hollow. Their skin is thin. You must be careful when you handle them. Understood? Yes, Sergeant, the team responded. Corporal loaded medical supplies into her pack. She was small but strong, with a face that looked younger than her years. She had joined the military at 18 and had served for 6 years. She had seen death before. She did not like it, but she was not afraid of it. How bad is it down there? Private asked. He was the youngest member of the team, barely 22. His hands were shaking slightly. Looked at him. Bad, but we have trained for bad. Just follow your training and stay close to the team. What if the training is not enough? Smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a confident one. Then we improvise. That is what humans do. In the medical bay, Doctor prepared her equipment. She was a surgeon with steady hands and a mind that could solve problems under pressure. She had studied physiology for years, knowing that someday she might need to save their lives. Their blood is copper-based, she reminded her medical team. They do not respond well to human medications. We have adapted treatments, but we must be careful with dosages. Their organs are positioned differently than ours. Watch for signs of internal bleeding. It will show as a darkening of their luminescent skin. Her team nodded. They were professionals. They would do their jobs. Captain entered the equipment bay. The room fell silent. Every soldier stood at attention. At ease, said. He walked among them, looking at each face. You all know why we are here. 3,000 people are trapped on a world that is trying to kill them. Most species would not even try to help. They would say it is too dangerous. They would say the conditions are impossible. He paused. His eyes were hard but not cold. There was something burning in them, something that made every soldier stand a little. But we are not most species. We are human. Our ancestors survived ice ages by learning to make fire. They survived famines by learning to farm. They survived predators by learning to fight. For 4 billion years our world tried to destroy us. It failed. We are still here. He pointed toward where Thetanine glowed with poison and fire. That world out there thinks it can kill us. It thinks it can stop us from saving those people. It is wrong. We will land on that surface. We will breathe that air if we must. We will carry those survivors out on our backs, because that is what humans do. We do not abandon people. Ever. A cheer went up from the soldiers. It was not a loud cheer, but it was fierce. It carried the weight of a species that had faced extinction 1,000 times and refused to die. On station, Ambassador watched the live feed from the Indomitable. They had requested to observe the rescue operation. They wanted to see what was happening to their people. What they saw terrified them. The humans moved with strange efficiency. They checked weapons and medical supplies with the same casual attention. They joked with each other. One soldier, Sergeant, was eating a meal bar while suiting up. He was about to descend into a radioactive hellscape, and he was eating. They are not afraid, whispered. Commander stood beside him. Should they be? That planet will kill them, the radiation alone. Humans can tolerate radiation levels that would kill most species in minutes. They have a remarkable ability to repair cellular damage. Their medicine has also advanced significantly in this area. Shook his head. But why? Why would they evolve such abilities? Was quiet for a moment. Because their world forced them to. Earth has natural radiation zones, solar flares that reach the surface. They had no choice but to adapt or die. The ambassador watched as the human soldiers boarded there. The ships were ugly, angular things, built for function rather than beauty. They looked like they could survive a direct collision with a mountain. And the other abilities? Asked. I have heard stories. Humans can run for hours without stopping. They can survive wounds that would kill any other species. They can function without sleep for days. All true, confirmed. Humans are pursuit predators. Their ancestors hunted by chasing prey until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They are not the fastest or the strongest species, but they are perhaps the most persistent. They simply do not stop. That is terrifying. Yes, it is. The launched. 3 armored vessels descended toward the burning world below. Inside the lead ship, Captain sat in the pilot's seat, watching the planet grow larger in the. The ship shook as it hit the atmosphere. Alarms blared warnings about radiation levels, toxic gases, and unstable weather patterns. The hull temperature climbed. The engine screamed. Turbulence ahead, the pilot reported. Push through it, ordered. The ship bucked and twisted. Outside, the sky was the color of infection. Green and yellow clouds swirled around them. Lightning struck the hull, making the lights flicker. In the cargo bay, the soldiers held onto their restraints. Their faces were calm. They had trained for this. They had trained for worse. 2 minutes to landing zone, the pilot announced. Sergeant checked his weapon one last time. Corporal recited a quiet prayer. Private took a deep breath and tried to steady his shaking hands. They broke through the clouds. Below them lay the colony, or what was left of it. The main dome had collapsed inward, its transparent walls shattered like broken eggshells. Fires burned in several locations. Emergency lights flickered weakly through the toxic haze. And everywhere there were bodies glowing faintly with dying light. My God, someone whispered. Captain's face was stone. Land the ship, we have work to do. The touched down on the cracked surface of Theta-9. The ramp lowered. Poisonous air rushed in, carrying the smell of sulfur and burning metal. The humans stepped out into hell. And they walked forward without hesitation. On station, Ambassador watched the feed with tears streaming down his translucent face. He saw the humans moving into the destruction, their suits already showing radiation damage. He saw them lifting debris, searching for survivors, calling out in voices that somehow carried hope. He had feared the humans. He had wondered what they would want in return for their help. Now, watching them walk into death for strangers, he began to understand. The humans did not want anything. They simply could not stand by while others suffered. And that somehow was more terrifying than anything else. The ground shook beneath their boots. It never stopped shaking. Theta-9 was a world in constant pain, and it wanted everyone on its surface to share that pain. Sergeant led Alpha Team through the ruins of the main dome. The structure had been beautiful once. They had built it with care and skill, using transparent materials that let the light filter through in gentle patterns. Now it was a graveyard of broken glass and twisted metal. Movement ahead, Corporal reported. She was on point, her sensors cutting through the toxic haze. Multiple life signs, faint but present. How many? Asked. 30, maybe 40. They are clustered together, probably an emergency shelter. Nodded, take us there, watch your step. The ground is unstable. They moved forward. The air around them was thick with poison. Their suits filtered most of it, but small amounts still got through. Every breath burned slightly. Every step felt heavy. Private stayed close to the sergeant. His heart was pounding. He had trained for this. He had simulated this exact scenario a dozen times. But simulations did not capture the smell. They did not capture the way the heat pressed against you like a living thing. They did not capture the fear. "Sergeant," he said quietly, "the radiation readings are spiking." Checked his own sensors. The young soldier was right. The levels were climbing fast. A storm was coming. How long until it hits? 20 minutes, maybe less. Then we work fast. They reached the emergency shelter. It was a reinforced pod designed to protect them from exactly this kind of disaster. But the pod was damaged. A piece of falling debris had cracked its outer shell. Air was leaking in. The survivors inside were slowly suffocating. Approached the pod's door. Through the small window he could see them. Huddled together, their bioluminescent bodies flickering like dying candles. Adults holding children, elders holding each other, all of them terrified. He knocked on the door, gently. The sound was soft, but it echoed in the silence. Inside, they looked up. Their eyes went wide. They saw the armored figure outside their door. They saw the strange, heavy suit. They saw the face behind the visor. A human face. Some of them screamed. Others pressed themselves against the far wall. A few simply stared, too exhausted to react. Understood their fear. He had read the reports. Many species in the galaxy were terrified of humans. They saw humans as monsters from a death world, predators, killers. He needed to change that, right now. Slowly, carefully, he removed his helmet. The poisonous air hit his face like a slap. His lungs burned. His eyes watered. He could feel the toxins beginning to work on his cells. He had maybe 10 minutes before serious damage started. But they needed to see his face. They needed to see that he was not a monster. "Hello," he said. His voice was rough from the bad air. "My name is, I am here to help you. Can you open the door?" They stared at him. A young female stepped forward. She was braver than the others, or perhaps she was simply too tired to be afraid. "You breathe the poison?" she asked. Smiled. It was a painful smile, but it was real. "Yes. Where I come from, we call this a bad air day. Now please open the door. We need to get you out of here before the radiation storm hits." The female hesitated. Then she pressed the release button. The door slid open. Alpha Team moved in with practiced efficiency. Corporal immediately began checking the survivors for injuries. Private distributed emergency breathing masks designed for physiology. The masks would filter the worst of the toxins, giving them time to reach the evacuation ships. Moved through the group, his eyes scanning for the most critical cases. He found an elderly who had stopped glowing entirely. The old one's eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow. "I need you here," spoken to his communicator. "Elderly patient, severe condition, possible organ failure." Doctor's voice crackled back. "I'm in the eastern sector with another group. I'll send medical team 2 to your location." Understood. Knelt beside the old. He took the frail hand in his own. The skin was cool, almost cold. The light beneath it was barely visible. "Stay with me," said softly. "Help is coming. You just have to hold on a little longer." The old's eyes opened. They were clouded with pain, but there was awareness in them. He looked at its face. He looked at the strange features of the human, the tiny eyes, the flat face, the mouth full of teeth designed for tearing meat. "You are from Earth," the old one whispered. "Yes. The death world. That is what they call it." The old coughed weakly. We thought no one would come. We thought we would die here, alone." Squeezed his hand gently, careful not to crush the fragile bones. "You are not alone, not anymore." In another sector of the ruined colony, Captain led his team into the collapsed mining tunnels. These tunnels stretched deep beneath the surface, where they had mined rare minerals. When the seismic event hit, the tunnels had collapsed, trapping hundreds of workers underground. The rescue would not be easy. The tunnels were unstable. Every few minutes the ground shook and dust fell from the ceiling. One wrong move could bring the entire thing down on their heads. Sensors show life signs 300 meters ahead, Lieutenant reported from the surface. She was coordinating the operation from the Indomitable, tracking every team, every survivor, every danger. The passage narrows significantly. Your team will have to proceed in single file. Understood, said. He turned to his team. Weapons down. Use your lights only. We do not want to cause any vibrations that could trigger a collapse. They moved forward. The tunnel walls pressed close around them. The air was thick and hot. Could feel the weight of the rock above him, millions of tons of stone held back by nothing but luck and hope. He had been in situations like this before. On Earth, he had helped rescue miners trapped by cave-ins. He had crawled through spaces so tight he could barely breathe. He had felt the terror of being buried alive. But he had always come out the other side. The passage opened into a larger chamber, and there, huddled against the far wall, were the survivors. 50, maybe more. Their bioluminescent bodies filled the dark space with soft, wavering light. Many were injured, some were unconscious. A few had stopped glowing entirely. A male stepped forward. He was covered in dust and blood, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at the humans with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "You came," he said. "You actually came." Nodded. "We received your distress signal. We came as fast as we could." "But the conditions, the radiation, how can you survive here?" Allowed himself a small smile. "We have had practice. Now let us get you out of here. Can everyone walk?" They could not. Many of the survivors were too weak to move on their own. The humans would have to carry them. So that is what they did. Lifted a child onto his back. The child weighed almost nothing, light as a bird. Her small hands gripped his suit, and her fatting light pressed against his back. "Do not worry," he told her. "I will not let you fall." The team began the long journey back to the surface. It was slow work. The tunnels were treacherous. Twice, they had to stop when sections of the ceiling collapsed ahead of them. Twice, they had to find alternate routes through the darkness. His muscles burned. His suit was heavy. The child on his back was light, but carrying her through these conditions was exhausting. He was operating on stimulants and willpower. But he did not stop. He could not stop. Stopping meant death, not for him but for the creatures who trusted him to save them. At one point, a support beam began to crack. Saw it happening in slow motion. He handed the child to another soldier and threw himself against the beam, using his own body to hold it in place. The beam was heavy, heavier than anything a human should be able to hold. His bones creaked. His muscles screamed. "Move," he shouted. "Everyone move now." The team rushed past him, carrying survivors. One by one, they passed the danger zone, held the beam, his arms shaking, his vision blurring from the effort. Finally, the last soldier passed, released the beam and dove forward just as the ceiling collapsed behind him. Rock and dust filled the space where he had been standing moments before. He lay on the ground, breathing hard. His whole body hurt. "Captain," a voice called. It was the male who had spoken earlier. He was staring with something that looked like awe. You held the ceiling with your body." Pushed himself to his feet. "We need to keep moving. The storm is almost here." They moved. On the surface, the radiation storm was arriving. The sky turned from sickly green to brilliant, poisonous orange. The humans worked faster, loading survivors onto evacuation ships, carrying the wounded through the burning air. They had not saved everyone. Some had died before help arrived. Some died during the rescue, their bodies too damaged to survive even with human medicine. But hundreds lived, hundreds who would have died without the humans. As the last evacuation ship lifted off, Sargent stood on the ruined surface and looked back at the destroyed colony. The radiation storm washed over him, his suit's alarms screaming warnings. He thought about the he had saved, the old one who had called Earth a death world, The young female who had been brave enough to open the door. The children who had clung to the soldiers like they were the only safety left in the universe. He thought about what it meant to come from a death world. Not that you were a monster, not that you were dangerous, but that you understood suffering. You understood what it meant to fight for survival against impossible odds. And you understood that no one should have to face that fight alone. Turned and walked toward the last ship. The storm roared around him, trying to kill him. He did not even flinch. The evacuation was nearly complete when the planet decided to fight back. It started as a low rumble, barely noticeable over the constant noise of the radiation storm. But the rumble grew. It became a roar. The ground split open in long, jagged cracks. Buildings that had survived the dome collapse crumbled into dust. The mining tunnels, already damaged, began to cave in completely. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Lieutenant watched her screens with growing horror. "Captain, we have a major seismic event in progress. The remaining underground sections are collapsing. I am detecting over 400 life signs still below the surface." Captain's voice came through the communicator. He was still on the ground, helping load the last evacuation ships. "Can we reach them?" "The main tunnel entrance is blocked. The secondary entrance, also blocked, sir. There is no way in." Silence stretched across the communication channel. Could hear the wind howling through his helmet microphone. She could hear the alarms on his suit warning of radiation damage. Then spoke. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Then we make a way." The human teams gathered at the nearest collapsed tunnel entrance. Rock and debris had blocked the passage completely. Standard excavation equipment could clear it in about 12 hours. The survivors below had maybe 2 hours of breathable air. Sergeant looked at the wall of rubble. He looked at his team. Then he started removing rocks by hand. "What are you doing?" Private asked. "Digging, help me." They dug, all of them, with shovels, with tools, with their bare hands when nothing else worked. The rocks were heavy. The radiation storm was intensifying. Their suits were taking damage. None of it mattered. Corporal found a narrow gap between two large boulders. Not large enough for a human, but maybe large enough for sound to pass through. She pressed her helmet against the gap and shouted, "Hello, can anyone hear me? We are coming, hold on." For a long moment there was nothing. Then faintly a voice echoed back. "We hear you, please hurry. The air is running out." Turned to the others. "They are alive. They are waiting for us." The digging intensified. On station, Ambassador watched the live feed with his aide Bora standing silently beside him. The ambassador had not moved from his position for hours. His eyes were fixed on the screen, watching the humans tear at the rubble with desperate determination. "They are going to kill themselves," Bora said quietly. "Their radiation exposure is beyond safe limits. Their physical exertion is unsustainable. They cannot maintain this pace." "No," agreed, "they cannot." "Then why do they continue?" Thought about the question. He thought about all the stories he had heard about humans, the tales of their violence and their danger, the warnings about their predatory nature, the fear that ran through galactic society whenever humanity was mentioned. "Because they made a choice," he said finally. "They chose to save our people, and once a human makes a choice like that, they do not stop. They do not care about the cost. They only care about the goal." That sounds like madness. Perhaps, or perhaps it is something else, something we do not have a word for. On the surface of Theta-9, Private's arm snapped. It happened suddenly. He was pulling at a large rock, trying to shift it out of the way. The rock moved, but not in the direction he expected. It rolled back, catching his arm against another stone. The bone broke with a sound like cracking wood. Screamed. For a moment, just a moment, he stopped moving. His face went pale. His breathing became fast and shallow. Sergeant was at his side in seconds. "Let me see." The arm was badly broken, compound fracture. The bone was visible through the suit's torn material. Blood flowed freely. "I need to get him to the ship," said. "He cannot continue like this." "No," said through gritted teeth. His voice was shaking, but there was something harder than pain in his eyes. "Set the bone. Give me painkillers. I can still dig with one arm." "Private, you are injured. You need medical attention." "Those people need medical attention more than I do. Set the bone." Looked at the young soldier. He saw the fear there. He also saw the determination. The same determination he had seen in 1,000 human faces throughout history. The determination that had allowed their species to survive when logic said they should have died. He set the bone, screamed again, louder this time. Then he took a deep breath, accepted a pain injection from, and went back to digging. One-armed, bleeding in agony. "Digging." Commander watched from station. Her hands were pressed against the observation window, her knuckles white with tension. She had seen many things in her years of service. She had watched species face extinction. She had witnessed disasters that claimed millions of lives. She thought she understood courage. She was wrong. This was something beyond courage. This was something primal, something ancient. The humans were tearing themselves apart to save strangers, and they were doing it without hesitation. "Commander," an officer called. "The evacuation ships are reporting significant delays. The radiation storm is interfering with their navigation systems." "Tell them to continue. The humans are buying them time." "Yes, Commander." Back at the tunnel, they had cleared enough rubble to reveal a larger boulder. It was massive, easily 10 tons of solid rock. It blocked the entire passage. There was no way to move it with their current equipment. Captain examined the boulder. His suit's sensors calculated its weight and density. The numbers were impossible. No human should be able to move such a thing. "We need heavy equipment," someone said. "Maybe from the ship." "No time," replied. "The equipment would take an hour to deploy. The survivors do not have an hour." He looked at his team. 8 humans, all of them exhausted, all of them injured to some degree, all of them looking back at him, waiting for orders. "We move it together," he said, "all of us, on my count." They positioned themselves around the boulder, shoulders braced against stone, boots planted firmly in the shifting ground, every muscle tensed, ready to give everything they had. 1 counted, 2, 3. They pushed. The boulder did not move. Again 1, 2, 3. They pushed harder. Could feel his spine compressing. He could feel his muscles tearing. His body was screaming at him to stop, to give up, to accept that some things were simply impossible. He ignored it. The boulder shifted, just slightly, just an inch, but it moved. "It is moving," shouted. "Keep pushing." They pushed. The boulder shifted again. Another inch, another 2 inches. Slowly, impossibly, it began to roll. Private was pushing with one arm, his broken limb hanging uselessly at his side. Blood had soaked through his suit. His face was pale as death, but he pushed. Corporal had wedged herself into a narrow gap between the boulder and the wall. She was using her body as a lever, her ribs cracking under the pressure. But she pushed. Captain was at the center, taking more weight than any single person should be able to bear. His bones groaned, his vision blurred, but he pushed. The boulder rolled, it moved. Foot by foot, inch by agonizing inch, it cleared the passage. Behind it they could see the surviving. Hundreds of them, packed into a small cavern, their lights flickering weakly in the darkness. "They did it," Ambassador whispered, watching from station. "They actually did it." The humans rushed forward. They carried the out one by one, 2 by 2, as many as they could hold. They did not stop to rest. They did not stop to treat their own wounds. They simply worked. Doctor arrived with her medical team. She took one look at the humans and wanted to weep. Every single one of them was injured. Every single one of them should have been in a hospital bed. Instead, They were carrying aliens toward the evacuation ships. "Captain, your team needs immediate medical attention," she said. "Was carrying 2 children, one in each arm. After the evacuation is complete." "Captain, after the evacuation is complete." She did not argue again. The last of the underground survivors reached the surface just as the final evacuation ship landed. The humans loaded them aboard with infinite gentleness. These fragile creatures who glowed like living stars. These strangers from a distant world who had called for help. They had answered. And they had paid the price. When the ship lifted off, Corporal finally collapsed. Her ribs were broken. Her internal organs were bruised. She had been running on willpower for the past 3 hours. Sergeant caught her before she hit the ground. His own arms were shaking with exhaustion. "I have you, I have you." "Did we get them all?" she asked weakly. "We got them all." She smiled. It was a painful smile, but there was peace in it. "Good, that is good." Private was the last to board the evacuation ship. He turned and looked back at the ruined colony one last time. The radiation storm had reached full intensity. The sky was burning with poisonous light. The ground was cracking open, swallowing the remains of the structures. It was a hellscape, a death world within a death world. And they had walked into it, they had fought it, they had won. Turned away and boarded the ship. Behind him, Theta-9 continued its endless dance of destruction, but its victims had escaped. Its prisoners had been freed. The humans had come. And the planet had lost. 47 hours. That was how long it had taken. 47 hours from the moment the first human boots touched the burning surface of Theta-9 to the moment the last evacuation ship docked with the Indomitable. 2,847 had been saved. Men, women, children, elders. They filled the cargo bays and corridors of the human ship, their bioluminescent bodies casting soft, wavering light against the metal walls. The humans had done the impossible, and now they were paying for it. The medical bay of the Indomitable was overflowing. Not with who were being treated in temporary facilities throughout the ship, but with humans, the rescuers who had become patients. Corporal lay on a bed, her torso wrapped in regenerative bandages. 3 of her ribs were broken. Her liver was bruised. Her lungs were from breathing toxic air. The doctors said she would recover, but it would take months. She might never serve in the field again. She had not complained, not once. Private sat in a chair beside her, his broken arm encased in a medical cast. The bone was healing, but there had been nerve damage. The doctors were uncertain if he would regain full use of his hand. He was 22 years old, and he might be disabled for the rest of his life. He had not complained either. Sergeant walked through the medical bay, checking on his soldiers one by one. His own body was a map of injuries, burns on his face from removing his helmet in the toxic air, muscle tears in his arms and back from the digging, radiation damage that would require treatment for years. He stopped beside his bed. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "How are the others?" she asked. "Alive, all of them, because of what you did." She smiled weakly. "I did not do anything special, I just did my job." Shook his head. "You used your own body to hold up a collapsing tunnel. You stayed there while your ribs cracked, while every instinct told you to run. That is not just doing your job, that is something more." "Then what is it?" Thought about the question. He thought about all the things that made humans what they were, their stubbornness, their loyalty, their refusal to give up even when giving up was the logical choice. "It is being human," he said finally, "the best kind of human." Captain stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Theta-9 was far behind them now, a distant point of light in the darkness. The planet was still there, still burning, still trying to destroy everything on its surface. But its victims had escaped. Its prisoners had been freed. The planet would have to find new things to destroy. Lieutenant joined him. She carried 2 cups of coffee, the strong black kind that humans seem to need after missions like this. She handed one too. "The ambassador wants to speak with you," she said. "He has been waiting for hours." Took the coffee, the warmth spread through his tired hands. "Send him in." Ambassador entered the observation deck on unsteady legs. His bioluminescent body was dim, flickering with exhaustion and emotion. He had spent the past 2 days watching his people be saved by creatures he had feared. He had watched humans bleed and break for strangers. He had seen things that challenged everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. He stopped a few feet from. For a long moment, he simply stood there, struggling to find words. Finally, he spoke. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Why?" Looked at him. "Why what? Why did you do this? Your people suffered so much. Some of you may carry injuries for the rest of your lives. We are strangers to you. We are not your allies. We have no treaty with Earth. We have never even visited your world." His voice trembled. "Why would you endure such pain for us?" Considered the question. He looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness that stretched between worlds. He thought about Earth, his home, a planet of hurricanes and earthquakes, of predators and plagues, of ice ages and meteor strikes. A planet that had spent 4 billion years trying to kill his species, and failed. "Do you know why humans are the way we are?" he asked. Shook his head. "Because our world never gave us a choice. From the moment our ancestors climbed down from the trees, everything on Earth was trying to kill them. The weather, the predators, the diseases, even other humans." Took a sip of his coffee. "We survived because we learned to work together. We learned that the only way to face an impossible threat was to face it with others. No one survives alone. But we are not your species. We are alien to you." "Yes, and that does not matter," turned to face the ambassador. His eyes were calm but fierce. "Every species in this galaxy looks at humans and sees monsters. They see death. They see creatures who can survive radiation and poison, who can run for hours, who can heal from wounds that would kill anyone else. They see predators." Flinched slightly at the word, noticed but did not stop. "But that is not what makes us human. What makes us human is that we remember what it was like to be small, to be weak, to be afraid. Our ancestors knew that fear, they lived with it every day, and they survived by helping each other, by refusing to abandon anyone who needed them." He put his hand on the ambassador's thin shoulder. "You sent out a cry for help. We answered. That is what humans do. It is what we have always done." Stared at him. Tears were forming in his large, gentle eyes. Not tears of fear this time. Something else. "I was afraid of you," he admitted. "When I heard that humans were coming, I was afraid. I know. I thought you would want something in return. I thought there would be a price." Smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was warmth in it. "There is always a price, but you do not pay it. We do." He gestured out the window, toward the medical bay where his soldiers lay healing. "That is the price, our blood, our pain, our sacrifice. We pay it gladly because that is who we are. That is what it means to come from a death world. Not that we are killers, not that we are monsters, but that we understand suffering, and we refuse to let others suffer alone." The ambassador was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but thick with emotion. "The galaxy fears you. They call you death as if it were a curse." "I know. They are wrong," straightened himself, his bioluminescent body glowing slightly brighter. "You are not monsters. You are guardians. You are the species that walks into fire to pull others out. You are the ones who answer when everyone else is silent." He bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect among the. "On behalf of my people, I thank you. Not just for saving our lives, but for showing us what humanity truly means." Returned the bow, slightly less deep but equally sincere. "You are welcome, Ambassador. If you ever need us again, we will come." The news of the Theta-9 rescue spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, Every species in the Galactic Council had heard the story. The impossible rescue. The humans who had walked into a death world and walked out with thousands of survivors. Some species reacted with disbelief. Surely the stories were exaggerated. Surely no one could survive those conditions, let alone conduct a rescue operation. Others reacted with fear. The humans were even more dangerous than they had imagined. If they could do this for strangers, what could they do to enemies? But a growing number reacted with something else, something quieter, something that felt like hope. Because the galaxy was a dangerous place. There were threats out there that no single species could face alone. Cosmic disasters, ancient predators, the cold, uncaring void of space itself. And now they knew that when those threats came, when the darkness closed in and all seemed lost, there was someone they could call. The humans would answer. On station, Commander stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from 100 species watched her on screens across known space. She was presenting her report on the Theta-9 operation. In conclusion, she said, the human rescue mission was a complete success despite impossible conditions. 2,847 lives were saved. The cost to the human crew was significant but not fatal. All injured personnel are expected to recover. A representative spoke up. And what do the humans want in return for this action? Paused. She had asked Captain the same question before his ship departed. They want nothing, she said. They stated that helping those in need is not a transaction. It is a responsibility. Murmurs spread through the council. Some were skeptical, some were confused, but many were thoughtful. The representative, whose species had refused to even respond to the distress call, shifted uncomfortably. Finally, an elder from the delegation stood. It was Ambassador. He was still recovering from the stress of the past few days, but his voice was strong. I have something to add to this report, he said, something that cannot be measured in numbers. The council fell silent. Before this mission, I feared humans. Many of us did. We saw them as death, predators, dangerous creatures from a planet that should not exist. He paused, gathering his thoughts. We were wrong. The humans came to save my people not because we had something to offer them, but because we needed help. They suffered. They bled. They broke themselves against the rocks and the poison and the fire, and they did it for strangers. His voice grew stronger, carrying across the council chamber. That is not the behavior of monsters. That is the behavior of heroes. The humans are not a threat to this galaxy. They are its greatest hope. Because when the darkness comes, when all seems lost, when every other species turns away in fear, the humans answer. He looked directly at the council, his bioluminescent body glowing with conviction. And that, my friends, is the most terrifying thing of all. Not that humans can survive anything, but that they will sacrifice everything to make sure others survive too. The council chamber was silent. Far away, aboard the HSS Indomitable, the humans continued their journey home. They had wounds to heal, reports to file, and new missions waiting for them. But they sailed through the stars knowing that they had made a difference, that somewhere in the galaxy, thousands of alien children would grow up telling stories about the day the humans came, the day the death answered their cry, the day they learned that monsters can be heroes, and that heroes come from the strangest places. Sometimes they come from death worlds. Sergeant sat in the mess hall, eating a simple meal and watching the stars pass by. Corporal was still in medical. Private was learning to write with his left hand. Captain was already planning the next mission. Life continued, as it always did. But something had changed. The galaxy knew about them now. Not the stories, not the legends, the truth. Humans were dangerous. Humans were terrifying. But humans were also kind. Humans were also brave. Humans would walk through fire for you, bleed for you, die for you, even if they had never met you before. And in a cold, uncaring universe, that was worth more than all the power in all the stars. Finished his meal and returned to work. There were always more people to save. And the humans would always answer. Always.